All right, church family, we decided we're going to do a podcast to answer some of your biggest questions that you have about going to two services. We know this is a big change for our church. It's the first time we've ever tried something like this outside of an Easter service where we typically have two services, but this is going to be a forever decision. So everything's changing. We know that typically then brings up lots of questions. And so we're going to cover some of the biggest questions, or I guess the most frequently asked questions that we've had so far. And hopefully by the time this podcast is over, we will have put maybe some fears to bed and also just maybe ask some questions or answer some questions that you've had along the way. So we're going to start out by kind of addressing some of the more practical side of things. The first one being, why in the world are we doing this to begin with? I know you've had that. Pretty good question. You've had that question. I've had that question. I think that's probably the most logical one is, do we really need to do this? You know, there's still a seat here and there, so why are we doing it? Basically, when you look at any kind of church growth studies, you're going to find that they all suggest that when your worship center is 70 to 75% full, you really need to go to two services. Now, there's a whole lot of more of a deep dive that we could go into as to why that is. Some of the more practical side of things is just people don't like to be super crowded in an auditorium like that. We've already seen, and I'm going to give you the numbers here in just a second, but we've already seen in our kind of like when we get the worship center as full as we get it currently, it's created problems with the parking lot. It's created problems with coming and going through generations. There's a lot of traffic issues already that we want to try to relieve through this as well. But if we're going by those numbers, 70 to 75% capacity, when we look at our numbers, basing them off of starting in 2023, we were averaging about 340 people as a whole. That's the entire church. 2024, 390. 2025 so far this year, 437. So we've obviously seen growth over the last few years. But those percentage numbers, if we're counting just what's in the worship center, we are currently already at that level where we're over the 75% mark. And going into 2026, if we continue the same growth pattern we've already seen, we would actually be over 80% full in the worship center just next year. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit. We're trying to make sure we're making smart decisions for our church to grow. And I would say probably one of the biggest reasons that I want to do this, it's not the biggest, but it breaks my heart to even say this, but we've actually seen it a couple different times now where families have come to church here and they show up. I think they're glad to be here, but they go into the worship center. Maybe they get here a few minutes late, whatever it may be, but they go to sit down and there's really no room. There's nowhere for them to sit. Even with our ushers, we put them in place to help the process. And yes, typically, there's a seat here and a seat here, maybe even room for two people there. But if you have a family of 3 or 4 or 5 and you walk through those doors, especially during our seasons where we have a lot more people, there's just nowhere to sit. And I think most people would feel the same way. That's a very, very difficult place to be, and you don't know what to do. You're new here.
Yeah, I think it makes you feel awkward, especially if you're a newer person. It kind of, and even though we're doing our part, we're creating like an usher team to help with that. It still makes you feel a little awkward when you're not familiar with the place and you don't know maybe a whole lot of people. And it's like, I don't want to ask somebody to scoot over and, or squeeze by or whatever. So, yeah, doing our part to pay attention to those things.
Yeah, and then there is y'all are wonderful people and all, but when you don't know the people you're sitting next to, you don't really want to be all snuggled up next to them either. So even if there was some room, most people want to have a little space between them. And so we notice these problems. We notice that we always say they're good problems to have, but they're still problems. And so we want to make sure we try to do all we can to fix them. So it's a very practical reason out of the gate of why to do it. It's not just we're like, hey, let's just do this. We really try hard here at First Christian to not change just for the sake of change, but to change out of necessity and for the betterment of our church. And so it's not even just us, but also the experts would tell you that we're past due for two services.
Yeah. And did you mention parking lot crowdedness?
A little bit at the beginning.
Some of you have already been aware how we've even enlarged our parking area already. And obviously with our building campaign, it's going to all be done and even become a little larger. But like, we're trying to address the problem as we go. But like, parking is an issue when you're already getting full. And so that's just another side of that practicality that's important for us to pay attention to.
And you may or may not, if you're not coming to church all the time here yet, we do have in those plans for the new parking lot. Not only will it be a lot nicer and easier to get around, but we're adding in a new exit entry out there as well to kind of help with the flow of traffic. So we really are trying to do all we can from a practical side to make it better here for everybody. And so those are some of the numbers side of things, practical side, but there's more to it than just a practical side. There's actually also a spiritual side to this aspect. And Tommy, I'll let you.
Yeah, sure.
That.
Obviously, both sides matter. You know, we need to think about those practical reasons why, but the spiritual reasons are obviously as important, probably really more important. And you know, we made a shift. I would say it's been going on 3 years now, probably, of how we kind of aligned we called them back then life groups. We've changed the name to D groups or discipleship groups. And we made this shift intentionally to start focusing on building disciples here at the church, and you know, one-on-one discipleship, group, you know, mentoring one another and coming alongside together and things like that. And as we've made that shift, it's been really exciting to see how that's when growth has really been happening. And I don't think that's accidental. You know, I mean, I think that's as we are striving to be closer to the Lord, you know, then he is drawing us closer to him. And then in return, we're working on finding others that need to know him and want to grow and learn to love him more. And it's just kind of one of those cyclical things that happens. And so it's pretty awesome that that's happening in the lives of so many people at the church. But because of that spiritual growth that's happening, our room is getting more and more full. And so, you know, we want to allow more room for more discipleship, you know, and so why wouldn't we increase the opportunity for God to move in more people by making our building more available, by having a couple of services, so that we can have room for those that we are beginning to reach out to and disciple, and those that are coming to have room to be and to grow together and enlarge the family of God.
Absolutely. And like we were talking about that scenario, there's not even scenarios, the real life examples of families that, and we don't even know. What we do know is the families that ended up leaving were not families we even knew who they really were. So that tells us they were probably visiting for the first time, maybe, or maybe only the first couple times they've ever been here. So losing out on opportunities like that who knows if they would have, if they have come back since then or not. But we just don't want that to be the reason someone doesn't come to church, end up being discipled, is because we didn't have room for them. So the spiritual side is super important. We want everyone to be able to continue to invite their neighbors, invite their friends, bring them to church. And while they're here, for them to feel welcomed and to feel like they're not sitting on someone's lap, and and they can pay attention to the service, and they can learn, they can grow, they can get invested in D groups.
We want to remove any distraction. And seating and room can be a distraction, you know. And I don't know if this is going to make sense, as you were just saying some of those things. I'm going to try to explain my brain, which I know sometimes that's a challenge.
Very challenging.
But, you know, when you commit to discipleship, to growing in your relationship with the Lord, you become uncomfortable at times, you know, like when he's teaching you something, or he's stretching you, or he's growing you. And like, even those that come to D groups, I'm sure in those moments you've been uncomfortable when, like, oh, wait, you want me to pray in front of the D group, or you want me to read some scripture? Like, that makes people uncomfortable, but it brings about growth, you know. And like, I think going to 2 services in a way might make us a little bit uncomfortable because it's new. It's something we haven't seen. It's not something we've really done on a regular, consistent basis. But being uncomfortable isn't a bad thing, you know. And usually, when you're working with your relationship with the Lord, being uncomfortable brings about growth. And so I think in some kind of cool way, that's probably what's going to happen through this.
And I think if we're honest, I don't know. I'll speak for myself. You can say if you agree or disagree. As pastors, even, there's obviously it's easier, it's better, it feels better when you are preaching and teaching to a full house of people. It is. And so knowing that we're going to 2 services, and obviously that's going to limit that number for a little while. It's okay, though, if we know that the ultimate goal is more people coming to know the Lord, more people being able to come and learn about Him. That makes it all worth it. Being uncomfortable for a little while, for things not to be exactly the way we want them to be. Like, again, I'm sure from a worship standpoint, when you've got the entire room full of people worshiping the Lord, there's a different feel to that. Sure. But church isn't all about coming for ourselves and what I can get out of church. It's all about me and what the church needs to do this for me and do this for me. Sometimes we need to get on the other side of this and say, what can I do as being a part of this church? What can I do to bring in more people, to allow more people to come to hear the gospel message? And if that means being a little uncomfortable for a little while, or not being exactly the way I wish it was or like it was, I'm okay with that for the greater good, for the gospel being able to be spread to more people. And so I think we have to have that mindset as well. I mean, preaching twice, leading worship twice, all of the people that are going to have to now do things double, right? All of our Kids World people, all of our worship team, tech team, band, everything. So it is more of an undertaking, but I think all those people, as far as the ones I've talked to, they're okay with doing that because they understand the greater good that's going to happen. It's not that it makes life easier for them. It actually makes it harder. Sure. But we sacrifice and we do things sometimes that aren't the easiest because we see the bigger picture, and that's having more disciples being made.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's going to be different, like from a worship through music aspect. I mean, it is different when you come into a room and the room is full and there's an energy there that might be different than when the room is half full or whatever. But like, I agree. It's okay that it's going to feel different. And like it's feeling different for a reason, right. Right. And I think that's good. We probably don't know we don't know what's going to happen along this journey, but we do know, and I think we fully believe that this is where the Lord has been leading us to. And like what we have to do is be obedient to where He's leading, and we have to take that step. And that's why we're taking this step, as nerve-wracking and uneasy as sometimes it might be. But like the uncomfortableness is a good thing, right. For us, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to a few more questions here. I know it's probably shocking that a couple pastors are taking this long to go through only two questions so far. But the next one, question that we've gotten is, why aren't we leaving one service at 10:30, moving our service? Or I'm sorry, I can't read. Why aren't we leaving one service at 10:30, moving our service to 11 is going to put people out so much later? So probably a better way to phrase that question is, why are we changing one of the services? Why don't we just add one and keep one the same? Because now if you're starting one at 11 o'clock, based off of how we do church now, isn't that going to put people out super, super late now that go to the second service? And the answer to that's no, but for good reason. Let me start answering this in 2 parts. The first part is we're going to 9 and 11, again, based off of, there's been a lot of research and a lot of prayer put into this, first of all. Again, we don't just change things to change things. 9 and 11, the 9's pretty self-explanatory. Having an earlier service helps us get another service within the morning hours, and we feel like most people would like to attend a service at 9 o'clock, those that would rather come early. But then instead of having it at 10:30 again, a lot of studies shows if we don't change that 10:30 service, then it's going to probably have a lot of people that just aren't going to change anything, and they're all going to come to the 10:30 service because that's what everybody's used to doing, is coming to a 10:30 service. But by moving it to 11, it really challenges everybody to have to make a change, whether you go to 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock. This is now a change for every single person in the church. Also, you're not going to be getting out super late if you go to the 11 o'clock service, because we are changing up the format of the services, not necessarily how all the flow goes. It'll be similar in that sense, but the amount of time that we're doing this. And so through song changes a little bit here and there, sermon timing, all those different things. We're actually, it'll be moved to an hour and 15 minutes, right? So we'll be going to an hour and 15-minute service versus an hour and a half that we currently do. So it's really not going to be a massive difference. You're not going to be here super, super late because we are going to be shortening the services a little bit to make sure we can get both of those in a decent time frame. But again, changing them to those slots are for very specific reasons of we want both places. Everyone's got to change. We feel like they work best. We also have something going on in between here that not all churches do, which is the whole Generations Cafe, which is a phenomenal part of our church. It's a huge ministry. And I know I'll turn that over to you a little bit to talk about some of how that's going to work. Because people have had that question. How's Generations working now? Is there anything before the first service? What's going on in between? So kind of explain that.
I mean, change is fun, right? We all love change, But the most fun thing about change is we get to embrace it, and it makes us a better person for doing that. And so the cafe is going to kind of change as well. Since we're having a 9 o'clock and an 11 o'clock service now, we're going to have what Julie's calling the Cafe Express prior to first service. And I'm looking so I tell you right. The plan is for the cafe to be open from 8:30 until 9 prior to first service, beginning at 9. And it's going to be like a grab-and-go menu. So they're going to be, grab-and-go things that are really, really fast, and then drinks. So there won't be like full breakfast, which they normally have now at that time. But then from 10 till 10:50, the cafe will be open in its regular format. So it'll have those grab and go things like those burritos that everybody loves and things like that. But they'll also have, I know, those are so good, right? Thank you, Josh Sanchez, for those burritos. Yeah. But it's also going to have all of their full breakfast items, the pancakes, the waffles, the biscuits and gravy, the casseroles that they make. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of things because I don't get to spend much time eating in there, but I get to walk around and greet a lot of people and see and smell all of the terrific food that's happening. But so there's two ways that you can enjoy the cafe. You can do a quick breakfast before the first service, or you can eat in the cafe, a full breakfast after the first service, but before the second from 10 to 10:50. But then that also means that you need to be sensitive to those that are around you. I probably need to say that.
Yeah,
right?
Talk about because let me give the scenario, then you give the answer.
Okay.
Scenario is obviously if you're coming to the first service, it would work best if you came early. If you want Generations, you came early, you got the grab and go to service, and you head on out, right? We help with that transition time. But we also know that some people are going to come to the first service, and then after the first service is over, they're going to want to get something from Generations. And that's still okay, but we need to, if in that scenario specifically, you need to be very careful with your timing. And so you explain why that is. Why is it important? If I go to first service and I'm like, hey, we're done with first service, let's go grab some breakfast before we go home. What should I be thinking in my brain that would be helpful to the church?
Oh, well, I mean, I think you should be thinking a couple of things. Probably one of them I might not say, but I probably will. But you should be thinking that I should be sensitive when I'm sitting at a table and like, I'm done with my breakfast and I see, there's a family of 4 coming through the line and they all got breakfast and I'm done eating so I could give up my seat at the table, and I could stand over there in fellowship or something like that. But you could also, remember like you ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here, So like you could just
classic Tom Hartman statement.
You could do something like that too.
So yeah, and I think that's honestly, that we could say that even on a Wednesday night anytime, but especially when we're trying at first to get this transition down. You got people coming in early to go to the second service. They're getting Generations. You got people leaving first service who want Generations before they go home. You've already had service and now you're eating breakfast. And so now, like you said, people are coming in for the second service. If you wouldn't mind kind of eating and scooting on out instead of the opposite of that really would be let's go to service and then let's go in Generations and let's just hang out, have some food and hang out all the way up until second service starts. And then we make our way home. And now you've kind of dominated all that time in there that the second service people could be coming in and getting their food and going to church. So we just need to be sensitive to that. And And Tommy's already given you permission. What was it? You don't.
You ain't got to go home.
You ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here,
That's right.
So something like that.
But fellowship matters, and
Yeah.
so we do want you to feel like you have time to fellowship with your friends and catch up and socialize, because relationships matter. Mm-hmm. Our relationship with the Lord matters, and our relationships with one another matter too. And so just be sensitive to those things, and we all work together towards the same goal.
And it will get better, by the way. And those of you who know that we've got a big kids building out there, there's up. We just got to build out the interior side of it. And when that gets finished, which we're hoping by the end of the year is going to be finished, that will alleviate a little bit of issue with some spacing, because now all the kids will be out there. So all of Kids World check in and check out, all that will be out in the kids building. So it will open up a little bit more space for a few more tables and chairs. And so will be able to help us a little bit. But even then, it's just a matter of looking around, being aware. Mm-hmm. And when you see that, we've been sitting here for 20 minutes and we're done eating, and there's other families walking around looking for seating, we just want to make sure we're being respectful of each other.
That leads us to another question, though. Like, if I could just ask you, if that's all right. Because I heard you mention Kids World and the Kids World building. And so, like, a question I know I've had a few times, you probably have too, like, for those that are serving, and maybe they're serving in both services, because that's what the role requires, or maybe they're serving in one service and then they want to attend the other service, because they're in the nursery in the first service, but they want to go to worship in second service or whatever. Like, what can those families expect to do with their kids? How are we going to manage that? Do they have to check their kids out? Like, how does all that work?
I do think for parents, some of it will be up to the parents as to how they want to handle it, the best they want to handle it, whether if they have a spouse maybe that can, in between services, their kids goes to Kids World one service and the other service they're at home with their other parent. That can happen, but this is you're asking specifically for those serving. So the kids of the families that are serving, they can actually stay in Kids World. So they go to the first service and they're in Kids World, they can stay for second service. Miss Jen is totally prepared for that. She understands that there will probably be a little bit of that. Some kiddos that mom and dad are both serving, or whoever maybe brought them to church could even be grandma that's serving, and is their ride home. So they're going to be in Kids World for both services, which is totally okay if that's the best way for that family to handle it. Miss Jen is also spending some time looking into these things and giving some other options. She's putting this stuff together. She's going to be actually sending out a letter to all the parents to let them know kind of her thoughts on it all, what would be best for the kids to do this. But she's totally prepared for them to be able to stay both services if need be. And again, I don't think that's a horrible thing for kiddos to hear it twice, to be able to have that repetition sometimes is good. So
we learn by repetition too.
Yeah. So we love having kiddos in our building, and we definitely don't want to shy away from that or do anything to hinder it. So again, and that'll get better as well once we have the new building for them and they have more space, more room. I'm sure Miss Jen will adjust even at that moment to where I don't want to speak out of turn. Don't tell her I said this, but she may even look into like something separate for those few kids that are having to stay for both services, something special for them as mom and dad or mom or dad serve in some other capacity for both services. So we promise we've thought about that. We don't want you to think that we're like, oh no, that was not something we ever thought about. But we're also working on the best solutions. And along those lines, we know there's no way we've answered every single question that everyone has out there. Feel free to come up and talk to Tommy or I or one of our elders and just say, hey, what about this? How's this going to work? Or I have a question about this. We'll do our best to answer them. I'm sure we are not perfect people. So I'm sure once we start these two services, we're going to go, you know what? We didn't really think that was going to be an issue, but now it is. So what's the best way to fix it? And we just we're flexible. We pivot. We do what's best for the church and the church family, and honestly, what's best for growing the body of Christ. And so we just want to make sure we admit up front, change is always a challenge, and there's going to probably be some part of this change that we're all going to have a little bit of us going, man, I kind of missed this, or I missed that, or I wish it wasn't. But it's also as we're that moment, we have to switch in our minds and think, but you know what? this is for the betterment of the kingdom. This isn't about me. This isn't about me getting everything I want. I think we talked about that before. There used to be that thought process in a lot of churches, and maybe there still are today, of, you know what, I didn't like those songs that we sang today. It's like we want it all crafted exactly the way we want, the songs we want. And I think for many years our answer was always, well, but what song did we sing today that God didn't like? Right?
Yeah,
it's like,
for sure.
It's not about us. We're not that consumer mentality, but it's here. We're here to worship the Lord and grow in Him. And so we're going to do everything we can to get better at that, to make our church more welcoming, be able to invite more people. So those are a lot of the reasons why we're doing this. But can you think of any other?
No, I don't think of any other questions offhand, but I think that's what's so encouraging about being part of a body of Christ is we get to come together, not for ourselves, but for Him, and like our goal isn't to come here and leave here and be like, oh, everything was perfect, this is how we wanted. Our goal should be to come here and give ourselves fully to Him, so that we can be drawn closer to Him and be changed in our life. And so that's exciting. And I'm like you, like we try really hard. Like you said, we've tried really hard to look through every step and put everything in place and figure everything out. But clearly we're obviously going to miss something because we've never done this before either,
Right.
So we're learning as we go, and we're doing our best to be ahead of every curveball that might get thrown. But we're just grateful for the grace that everybody gives us and the flexibility that we all have with one another. Because even though we might not get it perfect the first time, our goal is to always do our best and whatever we do to glorify the Lord. And so we just try to do that.
Yeah. And together. And really, how great is it that we're facing this, right? It's wonderful to think that we need to have two services, that there's a lot of people that want to come and learn about the Lord. All right, well, I think we answered, hopefully, most of the questions that people are having. Again, come find us if you need an answer to maybe a totally different question. And again, we're going to do our best to continue to follow up, give information to the church as much as we possibly can along the way. I would ask that from you, as a church family, to please be praying about this. This is a big change for a lot of us and in a lot of different ways, and for you. And so bathe this in prayer along with us. Be excited, be grateful, thankful that we're even at this place. God's allowing us to be a part of a growing church. That's exciting in and of itself. And I just can't wait to see what God does in and through the two services. I hope that we're making a podcast soon that's saying, how is 3 services going to look? Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be pretty incredible.
Yeah. So thanks. If you've watched this long, I feel like you should get a free burrito. I won't say that, but do not go to Miss Julie and tell her that, because then I'll get in all kinds of trouble. But you're going to get a sticker that says, I made it through the podcast. But we appreciate you listening, getting the info. Hopefully you can help us by letting other people know if they have the same questions or similar questions as well. Anything you want to add?
No, I think you said it perfectly.
You don't want to sing us a song?
No songs
Worship
today.
Pastor?
No songs today.
No songs today. You can come on a Sunday morning and hear this guy's vocals are off the chain.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Seriously, thank y'all for tuning in and listening to this, and we hope we'll see you on a Sunday real soon.